Hi, it's Ileana. So, I have been having a deeper look into my remote viewing of the IceCube Neutrino Detector in Antarctica. The remote viewing had been done in May. The book had been also published in May, and the video was released about the book in June. So, what I found out from the remote viewing is that this large neutrino detector that is beside the South Pole Station, the DOMs, the spheres that are attached to the strings, the 5,000 plus wired sensor detectors, these DOMs, they're digital sensors. They emit voltage. A large power source. And I was like, what is the average range of voltage that they emit? And it was finding the specs for the voltage was not that easy. I found a scientific report. So each DOMS sphere emits, according to the official records, 1,200 to 1,400 voltage percentage. But when I looked at it closer through the remote viewing, it emits 2,000 plus voltage. 2,000 plus. Like 2,167. That's the number I got. That's a lot of voltage per DOM sphere connected to the wired strings in the ice. And it's protected by that ice shield for the clarity of picking up the neutrino signatures. But the IceCube Neutrino Detector is also part of the SETI detection devices. And SETI picks up, it's looking for signals. It's looking for radio signals from extraterrestrial life or anything else artificial. So that IceCube Neutrino Detector is also set up to pick up artificially constructed neutrino signals, to detect those kinds of signals. And it would have to be at a certain type of a energetic scale, 6.3 peta electron volts, PeV. That's what it would have to be at, 6.3 or higher, for it to be an artificially constructed signal that's not naturally coming from quasars, blazars, because what the IceCube Neutrino Detector does, it picks up everything, all kinds of neutrino signals. So it has to be at a certain frequency, and it monitors for that too. So what I had picked up in the remote viewing, that it is an active transmitter and receiver systems array, because when it's activated, there's electromagnetic energy coming from it, power energy coming from it, that is then balanced out in scalar waveform for amplitude of power. So there's both electromagnetic energy and scalar energy frequency. That's a lot of power. It's a huge array system, neutrino detector. So it was kind of bugging me. How is this thing a transmitter and a receiver array? Because it has the DOMS sensor devices, plus it has a separate array antenna, also buried under the ice, and there's connection to satellite systems on the IceCube Observatory itself. It's connected to active satellites to track things. That's a lot of power to just track neutrinos. It's tracking encoded neutrino messages by picking up those 6.3 or higher peta-electron volts PeV artificially constructed signals, not just the natural neutrinos. So that's how it's a transmitter and receiver system connected to multiple devices that send telemetry of what's going on. And they have server systems that collect all the data from the neutrino detector. It's a big device, and it's going to be upgraded in 2023 for adding in more of those DOMS sensors to it, because they can drill holes in the ice with a drill system that warms up the ice. They can drill more holes, they can put more sensors in those DOMs, interconnect them to the existing system, and expand the field of the neutrino detector in the ice shield. In the water, it's some of the purest ice water in Antarctica, and it acts as a catalyst for picking up the purest, cleanest signals of the neutrinos. That's why this is one of the biggest neutrino detectors that was built, and it works successfully. It's not under any ocean, because there's also neutrino detectors under oceans and in constructed lab settings, but this one is purely out in the field. And there's that IceCube Neutrino Detector Observatory picking up all this data from the neutrino detector. And it's connected to satellite systems, so it could track a lot of different things out in space. Not just neutrinos, but also those artificially constructed neutrino signals and probably other cosmic ray frequencies and signals, not just neutrinos. It probably can do much more than that in the types of frequencies it can receive from transmissions. And I was getting that these signals, artificially constructed signals that they're picking up with this neutrino detector, it comes from sublight spaceships, which is traveling at the speed of light or below the speed of light, as well as faster than the speed of light spaceships and crafts that they're detecting these signals from. So they're tracking communications, encoded neutrino communications. It might be human-run ships from secret programs up in space. It could be extraterrestrial ships that they're picking up signals from. A lot of the science papers say that neutrino detectors can pick up communication signals, neutrino communication signals from extraterrestrial beings, because advanced extraterrestrial civilizations are probably not using radio wave form signals anymore. They're encoding their communication systems likely through neutrinos. The research is there to back up this kind of a theory. So I don't think this is a theory, because the remote viewing showed that this neutrino detector, the IceCube Neutrino Detector in Antarctica, is very much an active transmitter and a receiver systems array, working with electromagnetic waveform frequency energy. And electromagnetic energy, it doesn't go in one line of energy, it jumps. Whereas scalar frequency is more consistent. It's more of like, it doesn't have the waveform jumping fields. It's more steady state. So it makes sense. Electromagnetic frequency provides the energy, then it is aligned properly into balance with the scalar wave frequency, working in conjunction with that to balance it out and pick up the signals, or to direct the neutrino detector in which direction it will pick up signals from. So allowing it to be more flexible in the direction which it picks up these neutrino signals, whether natural ones or artificially constructed neutrino signals. This is a complicated and sophisticated technology system that's being expanded in Antarctica. There's plans to improve it, to expand it, and continue to have it working. And it's also part of the CERN. It's classified, there's a classification as part of the CERN devices that make the particle collision and study different energy forms of energy construction. So it's part of the CERN devices. That's something else that the research showed, because this remote viewing was interesting and it gave a lot of terms and ideas, how these devices are designed, what they're designed to do, but what's the actual schematics, what's the actual scientific data of what signals it picks up, what its capabilities are, how it's interconnected. That required a lot of research to be done to figure that out, because you have the remote viewing that says this device does this, 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 and it's connected to this, this, and that in Antarctica. Okay, yeah, it's connected to that, and it does this. But where is the scientific proof of what it could do and how it does it? Sometimes remote viewing shows that to some capacity, and it did show that, what it does and how it runs. Then you have to go and prove the science. Because if you're claiming something, then you need to know what the science people are saying about its capabilities. And the science is there to back up the claims of some of the claims of the remote viewing about this device. Why would you need 2,167 voltage of energy per DOM when it's just a sensor picking up neutrinos? Because it has 5,160 something sensors. Why would you need that much voltage and energy to just track neutrinos? There has to be more to just tracking neutrinos, and there is. It's tracking signals, radiation, energy from UFOs, UAPs, neutrinos that are potentially created by UFOs, UAPs, or other forms of particles and signatures that we're not being told about that UFOs produce. It's a monitoring system for also tracking UFOs and UAPs, different types of crafts, whether ours or somebody else's that's out in space. That's what it tracks, but it also tracks communication signals. Not the radio waves, but it tracks specifically neutrino communication, encoded messages in neutrinos. And that experiment had been also done by humans. It was a very simple experiment, but information was sent to submarines. They received it. Information was sent to the Fermi lab. They received the signal. And they say, we need huge neutrino detectors, and it's too expensive to do this often on the planet. But they already have neutrino detectors, several of them across the world. They have active neutrino detectors tracking neutrino signals, natural ones and the artificial ones. They've probably picked up messages and communications that they have not told us about. So this system can do what, in theory, it's designed to do. It actually can do it, and it's doing that. The remote viewing showed what it's doing. Now, that's a broad claim. Oh yeah, it picks up signals from different types of crafts out in space, in space programs. That's what the remote viewing showed. And the science, what the scientists are saying, yes, it can pick up artificially constructed signals from other civilizations out there. It can do that. It could track that 6.3 peta-electron signal voltage PeV. It can track those kinds of signals or higher. So it has a lot of power that it produces through those DOMS digital sensors. Because, again, why do you need so much power for just tracking neutrinos, for just studies of neutrinos? You're doing a lot more than that. So this type of research is what I was looking for additionally to try to figure out what exactly is it tracking? What kind of a PeV signal type does it need to track that is artificially constructed? I needed to know that, and I've added to this book. I've been adding and adding and adding. Also, why would you have a cloning facility under the ice layers in Antarctica? Because permafrost apparently is permafrost and cold ice and dry ice is very optimal and conducive to study different ways of cryogenic suspension animation, of how to put people in stasis, cryogenic stasis, for whatever you need for studies, to preserve bodies, to preserve plant life. Permafrost in the Arctic helps to preserve flash freezing ancient civilizations and plants. Scientists have been able to collect DNA from flash frozen animals and plants. And actually, some of those animals have recloned themselves when they were defrosted. Some beings can clone themselves. Some small animal beings can clone themselves, which is not surprising to me because there's a cloning facility in one of the cavern systems, not too far away, surprisingly not too far away from a station in Antarctica, not the South Pole station, it's a different one, but it's a huge one. When you first come to Antarctica, it's the first thing you see, and it's in the book. I'm not going to say which station it is, but people can probably guess. It's one of the biggest stations, not the South Pole, but there's another big one, and it's miles away from it, but it's kind of like the point of where it is. It's miles away from it, but it's under it in the cavern system. So this kind of studies about permafrost, about ice, that makes sense. And it's a faraway place where you can create a cloning facility where nobody's going to question that there is one out there. Because you can't even get to Antarctica unless you have scientific clearance. You can go on tours, but they're not going to show you much of the scientific top secret research facilities under the cavern systems. You would have to be a scientist to have clearance levels. You would have to be a scientist to have clearance levels to visit any research facilities, or you would have to be a mechanic to work at any of these stations. So it's a lot going on in Antarctica. While it was interesting for me to see the remote viewing data on the IceCube Neutrino Detector, there was information about the technical aspects of it, how it works, what it does, how it interacts with the ice, what it picks up, that it has a lot to do with space programs of various types and different types of ships, communications, also directed energy, weapon and how it creates both the mind and body sickness, how it can send energy frequencies from a distance that are invisible to make people sick, that it does that, and that it's a covert program doing it. But the thing is, there has to be some science with information. How can all of that be done? Is there any scientific data from science that discusses these subjects? And they do. It took almost 2.5 weeks to look up the research information to even figure out how all of this is possible. How in the world is it possible? It's trying to suspend disbelief and to find some proof. Actually go out, do the legwork to find proof of what is going on here in secret. Why are they doing this? What's the capabilities? And I found it. I found the capabilities. That's why this book has been expanding, because I have more questions from that remote viewing than I had answers. And I was saying to myself, well, you need to go to the science. Start looking at this even more in depth. Go and do the research, the hardcore research, to find answers to what the remote viewing gave me, and more questions than the answers, technical answers that I needed. I am now satisfied to the point that I understand the answers to my questions. I actually get it and understand how this system works. Again, I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm not a cosmologist. I'm not a mechanic. I'm not any type of a specific technician of anything. I did the remote viewing. I saw a lot of technical data that is beyond my scope of even understanding. And I know some great electrical engineers, but this is nothing I can ask them. So it was up to me to go and do a lot of research to figure out how this thing works and what it does, and what kind of artificial neutrino signal it would need to be that it's picking up, what it's detecting. I needed to know that. So I did more extra work on this that needed the work. I admit, sometimes a book needs more information when you have too many questions to which you don't completely have answers to. And honestly, sublight spaceships, what in the heck is sublight? At the speed of light or below the speed of light. That is what sublight is. I know what faster than the speed of light crafts are. Travels beyond the speed of light. So it has some type of advanced engine systems that are not rocket fuel, not rocket fuel, does not use rocket fuel. It has to be warp drives, advanced FTL engines to go beyond the speed of light. The sublight is at the speed of light or below the speed of light at which sublight spaceships travel at. So it's using some type of sublight engine systems to do that. Sublight terminology was not something I was familiar with. So I had to do some research to figure out what sublight meant. Again, I'm used to faster than the speed of light. That I get, what kind of systems those are, but sublight, that's a little more conventional technology. It's the older ships in these space programs that go at sublight. They can still travel to various planets. They just go and do it slower than the faster than the speed of light ships. Apparently, they have those ships still in their systems that still fly at sublight. Nothing wrong with that. It's not even being admitted to us that we have sublight technology out there. We're not being told about it. It's not conventional rocketry. It's different types of engines, but they're not traveling beyond the speed of light. Sublight ships. The faster than the speed of light ships are, and they have both types out there that they have picked up communication messages from. That's the distinction as well here in what this remote viewing has shown. And it's good to know the differences in what these technologies are and the capabilities of them, what's out there in space. I have been asked in terms of what type of evidence do you have that the IceCube Neutrino Detector acts as a transmitter and receiver array system. Evidence, in terms of evidence, I have the remote viewing, and I don't claim that to be any type of evidence. What I found in the remote viewing required further investigation to try to look for any type of scientific evidence of what this equipment in Antarctica has capabilities of doing and can do or does. You have to go the science route. Remote viewing showed what's being done, the capabilities, and sort of the how and the why. But you have to look for scientific evidence to try to prove anything or disprove anything in that remote viewing. With that kind of a system, where you have the neutrino detector itself in the ice, then you have the IceCube observatory picking up the data from what the neutrino detector detects, which are neutrino signals, neutrino communication, encoded messages. That's what the remote viewing says. Okay, is it possible to pick up encoded messages from neutrinos? Yes, it is possible to do that. The science says it's possible, and the remote viewing shows that it's being done in Antarctica. And the type of communications from sublight spaceships and faster than the speed of light, and possibly extraterrestrial signals as well, the artificially made ones. It's possible, it's being done in secret, and it's being done in Antarctica. That's what the remote viewing shows, and the science says it's possible to do it. It is within the realm of possibility to do it. That's what the science says, and it even gives the type of frequency at which it can be done, which I had discussed. Also, there's other applications to communicate with submarines, to deliver neutrino encoded messages. If you have enough power and frequency, you can do it. Because eventually we're going to go away from radio wave signals for communication. We're going to go to something more advanced. Perhaps it will be neutrino communication and delivery. The science also discusses that's possible and likely will happen in the future. There's a lot of different variables here in what the data shows, and it required a lot of patience and a lot of investigational work. The investigational work had to be done as follow through to the remote viewing. I usually do not go and look up scientific data once I've completed a remote viewing of something. I do the remote viewing, the drawing work, the sketches, then I do a final report, completed report with everything tied in. So it's typed up and not just in my handwriting on a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I do my work through hand-drawn writing and sketching with an ink pen on a white piece of paper, 8.5 by 11. Landscape. That's all I have to work with when I do remote viewing. I don't have a stylus. I don't have a tablet. I do old school remote viewing, pen, ink gel black pen, and paper. That's all I have. Then I have to, once the remote viewing is completed, I have to scan it in. I have to make sure it's scanned correctly, save it as the proper title for the remote viewing. And oftentimes I have many different sessions on the same item or something related to it, like I did in this remote viewing. But this remote viewing had a lot of sophisticated technology, technical aspects, how-tos, the whats, the whys, and how it all works that required scientific background research as proof of potential evidence for anything. And I'm not even claiming that the scientific research for me is proof of anything. It's potential possibility. I think of it as a possibility, not indefinite proof. I will not claim that it is indefinite proof of anything. I would have to go myself to Antarctica to examine this neutrino detector and see what it's calibrated to pick up for neutrino signals, what type of frequency it's calibrated to. You have to go physically to check it out, or you have to access the telemetry data that the IceCube Neutrino Observatory is picking up. What frequencies they're picking up of neutrinos, what kind of artificial constructed neutrino signals they're tracking. You have to look at the data to see the proof. What this neutrino detector is calibrated to pick up in neutrino signals, what types, and what that observatory is collecting in that telemetry in the servers, and what they're connected to, which satellites, and what those satellites are also tracking. There's a lot of different data. There's a lot of different hardware and software involved in this project endeavor that they're doing out in Antarctica. You have to check that all out. If anybody has whistleblowed this to Congress or Senate and handed off materials to check this out, to try to verify this information, this communications between different ships going on with this technology, you have to have the scientific evidence to back up such a claim for it to be even investigated by something like AARO, AARO, which is a new organization that has replaced the UAP committee. So you have to have a lot of evidence in your reports. If you're reporting as a whistleblower, something like what I saw in the remote viewing, and I am not a whistleblower, I would never go and report any of that, because this came out as a remote viewing with a lot of scientific research behind it in a book. That's why I released this project in a book and through videos. Never been to the South Pole, personally, myself physically, not to the South Pole. I've been in Antarctica through other secret program stuff that has to do with time dilation and teleportation systems, and studying the Atlantean ancient outposts and the technology there. That's the only claim I make in connection to Antarctica. Remote viewing the cloning facility, remote viewing the IceCube Neutrino Detector, and the IceCube Observatory connected to that technology. I've never personally been anywhere near the South Pole Station. I've done the remote viewing work, I've done the research and what the science says about those technologies. I cannot be a whistleblower, because to be a whistleblower, you have to have actionable data that you are reporting to Congress for them to investigate. AARO. I don't think even AARO has the proper classification credentials to investigate something, what is going on in Antarctica. From what I heard, you need top level clearance of 50 or 70 beyond to even check the claims of reverse engineered crafts and crash site retrievals of non-human origin crafts. You need 50 or higher clearance. And Arrow has like 10, 12 clearance levels. So that's not enough for them to investigate something like that, let alone directed energy weapons or communication systems from encoded neutrino artificially constructed signals that this neutrino detector, IceCube Neutrino Detector, is tracking and picking up and probably tracking UFOs, as the remote viewing showed as well. And I say probably, hypothetically, because I have not gone there personally to check it out. I don't have access to just going on a mission and trip to Antarctica. So I don't claim to be doing that at all. I did the remote viewing. I clarified what I could of that project. I can only put it out in video descriptions and a book so that people have public knowledge that such programs exist and what's being done in Antarctica. That is what I can do as part of my disclosure. Anything else that is whistleblowing, if anybody gave this to Congress from firsthand knowledge experience, they better have the scientific data to back that up, that it's possible for that to be able to be happening in Antarctica. And hopefully they did their homework, their research, they have their notes, whatever they saw in Antarctica, they cataloged the information, what they saw, how the tech worked. They've submitted it to the appropriate places that can actually go there and investigate that or ask for information about it to be subpoenaed. Because there has to be scientific evidence of proof of concept that this is happening somewhere out there. For this book, I learned you have to have the evidence, at least circumstantial evidence, to try to figure out how any of this works beyond just a remote viewing. It has to go deeper than a remote viewing. The scientific data needs to be there to back up any of this as reality. So this is a huge, huge subject beyond just UFOs, beyond just reverse engineering of UFO technology. Whether there's extraterrestrial bodies, crashes, there's a lot more going on than just that. There's scientific experiments happening in Antarctica that are huge disclosure as well, that we need to know about and have proof of it. This needs to be disclosed to the public. The experiments, the human experiments, the cloning, the super soldiers, all of that we need to know about. Those directed energy beam weapons, neutrino encoded messages, sublight spaceships faster than the speed of light spaceships, space programs. Those are things that are part of this huge disclosure that we need to know about. It's all part of it. It's not just one piece of disclosure. It's many different pieces and connections that form disclosure. There's also disturbing information about the IceCube Neutrino Detector, that the fact that there's videos on the internet talking about the Christchurch earthquakes in 2010, 2011, then the Chilean earthquake, then the Italian earthquake, 2016, I believe, that the neutrino detector was part of causing the Christchurch, New Zealand earthquakes, 2010, 2011, then the Chilean earthquake was caused by the Large CERN Hadron Collider And then the Italian earthquake was also mini series of earthquakes, was caused by, again, the CERN Large Hadron Collider that is in Switzerland. So there's a lot of different videos about these CERN devices, because both the IceCube Neutrino Detector and the Large Hadron Collider, they are CERN devices, picking up different things or smashing particles together. That's the Large Hadron Collider. That's what it does. And it vibrates at such a frequency, creating electromagnetic scale waves that can literally go under the core, like go deeper to the core of the planet and shake land masses to a certain degree. It's been found that earthquakes have happened when these CERN devices are turned on, when they're first being adjusted, calibrated. That can also happen because when I was doing the remote viewing, I got that CERN devices can cause earthquakes. To me, it was like, any proof of that? Is there any information? Why am I getting Christchurch, New Zealand? Why am I getting those places? What am I picking up on? It picked up an observation that there's something to do with New Zealand and Christchurch. This is a town where several earthquakes happened. 2010, then 2011. Then when I went and did research on this, the Chilean earthquake came up, the Italian earthquake came up and the Christchurch, New Zealand earthquakes came up in a lot of the videos online, plus a lot of different conspiracy forums talking about those earthquakes, how it's linked to the IceCube Neutrino Detector in Antarctica, to the Chilean earthquake, and to the Italy several earthquakes, when these CERN devices were doing experiments, when they were turned on, and how this shook the earth. People can actually read about this information. It's public knowledge. These articles have been out since 2011. The videos 2012, 2016, 2019. There's the conspiracy forums. If you do a deep search for it with these keyword terms, Christchurch, New Zealand, Antarctica, CERN, devices causing earthquakes, Christchurch, earthquakes, New Zealand, Antarctica, Chilean earthquake, Italian earthquakes, it will pop up in the years when it happened. There's been some controversial articles about it. It's on the conspiracy forums. And it's not being taken off the internet. If you do a deep dive search, you'll find it. It's in the public domain. You have to search for it a little bit deeper, but it's there. Several videos on it, several articles on it, and even some research articles talking about this stuff, which is good. People should know this information because it's quite devastating. If they build more of these CERN devices on the planet, it could destabilize land masses and cause further earthquakes. We don't need that. It's not safe. Just as it's not safe that the neutrino detector, the IceCube Neutrino Detector, is creating a lot of electromagnetic energy and power that is also being used as a directed energy beam weapon against people. That's dangerous. It shouldn't be done. They shouldn't be doing this, but anything that has a lot of power can be used for energetic weapons production, especially if the beams are invisible, which they are. You won't see it coming. You'll just feel some symptoms of sickness. You'll feel very uncomfortable, anxiety, pain, unexplainable symptoms of feeling like you're crawling out of your skin. That's what happens when you're targeted with directed energy beam weapons does. You're not seeing it, you're feeling the spectrum of the targeted energy going towards you because it affects your mind and your body. That's what happens with those types of invisible weapon systems. They could be large, they could be small, they could be stationary, portable. It's quite scary and disturbing what's happening in this world with these types of technologies being developed and tested on unsuspecting humans who don't know what's going on. It's scary. It's very scary. It should not be happening. Yet we live in a world of secrets where it does happen, unfortunately, and it should be exposed for the unlawful crimes that stuff is. Fact is, it should not be done on us or to us. Thank you so much, and namaste.